Welcome to Landlord Diaries, where we talk about midterm rentals and the opportunities behind them. We'll share landlord stories, talk about maximizing investment potential, and discuss how to live the very best landlord life. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Furnished Finder, the place for everything midterm rentals. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content.
Hello, our favorite fans of the Landlord Diaries. This is Kelly Bailey, your host and midterm enthusiast in the Austin, Texas area.
And hey everyone, I'm Katie joining you from the Denver area. Today we get to talk with Vivian. Vivian has grown her midterm portfolio from the ground up, and she's done everything in a very impressive professional way. She's got her very own booking website that just launched. She has some amazing branding. She has a clear vision, a clear niche. She talks a lot about processes and ways that she has stood out in the market. So I'm so excited for everyone to hear this episode. And just as a reminder, this episode and all of the episodes are brought to you by Furnished Finder. We are the go-to marketplace for midterm rentals. So there's never any booking fees, and it's a very affordable rate to list your property on Furnished Finder. And it really is a great source for you to find leads for your next midterm tenant. Enjoy!
Hi, on today's episode, we talk with Vivian Yip about her corporate rental business in the Austin, Texas area. We will focus on how Vivian has built a business and a brand with her furnished rentals. If you'd like to connect with Vivian, go to her website, www.corporaterentalsaustin.com. Hi, Vivian. Thanks for being with us today. How are you?
Hi, good morning. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Well, let's jump into the first question. What's your why? How did you get started in real estate?
My husband and I have been flipping homes since 2018. And the reason why was because we couldn't be in corporate jobs anymore. We were, spending all of our days at our desk in the office, and we would only get a couple hours with our kids every day. And it just felt like the wrong way to live. So we started putting together a plan on how we might be able to find a side hustle that could eventually replace our income. And so we started flipping houses. We did 6 in our first year, and we did another 6 in the next year, and so on. And today we've done 25 properties. And over that period, we were able to keep some of the properties that we found. And there became the organic birth of Furnished Rentals in Austin.
Awesome.
So tell us about your portfolio now and how you stumbled into midterm rentals versus a short-term or a long-term.
Well, I would say it started with my first property in Round Rock, Texas. It was a flip that we purchased in the Chisholm Valley neighborhood, and it was such a good deal and in such a great location with no short-term rental regulations that I turned it into my first Airbnb. I've always wanted to be in hospitality. I worked at a hotel as an intern when I was 17 years old, had a blast. But, never wanted to start at front desk, and that's how you always start in hospitality. But long story short, that short-term rental in Round Rock performed very well. But when the pandemic hit, I wasn't very happy with how Airbnb was canceling people's reservations for me. So I ended up taking it off of Airbnb just for a little while, and I put it on the MLS, and I also put it on Furnished Finders. And I ended up getting a booking for 3 months for a family that was moving to the neighborhood. And they stayed for 3 months, and that was so easy, And then right after that, I had a construction team stay with me for 7 months. And I thought, wow, I'm really onto something here. So fast forward, I decided to quit my job in corporate because I just, lost my hair from a lot of stress and things that were happening during the pandemic. And, I sold that property, made some money on it, and then now I hold 2 duplexes, and I house hack. I have a studio in the back of my home that I rent to travel nurses. And I also have 2 properties that I manage for another investor, along with two short-term rentals out in the country.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, I just think you have such an impressive business model and portfolio. So, what led you to decide to brand your products and turn it into, a website versus we of course have a lot of hosts that uh, do a great job of using Furnished Finder and marketing their properties and waiting for the right tenants to come their direction, but you've taken it to the next step and you've built a business and a brand through your furnished rentals. So, what has that journey been like for you, and why did you choose to brand your products?
So I belong to a lot of Airbnb Facebook groups. And what I've learned over the last few years is that it's not if, but it might be when you might get kicked off of Airbnb for any particular reason. If the guest is, potentially accusing you of something that didn't happen just because they're, disgruntled or whatnot. And I have almost all of my listings on one account. So I felt like there was a big risk there to accidentally get shut down or even on purpose get shut down by somebody that's accusing of something. So I thought, I need to have another avenue for direct booking, considering I have those listings on one platform. The second thing is, the Airbnb market here in Austin for short-term rentals has now exceeded 18,000 units and listings, which I
Wow.
find really crazy considering the last year it's just grown more than double. So there's a little bit of a saturation there that I need to, look out for. And I feel that a lot of people will eventually slide into the midterm rental market because it just seems to be a really hot topic this year. Having a dedicated breakout session at the Bigger Pockets conference where we met.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
now just trying to see around corners, I'm thinking, I need to start, building a brand around what I offer, having 6 properties. And, at the end of the day, when you're housing people that are staying for longer periods of time, they want to have a kind of certainty of what they're booking. I want to make sure that, they're having an extremely comfortable bed to sleep in, that they have, all the amenities that are in good working order, a beautifully maintained home, all these different things that I know that we can differentiate ourselves from other Airbnb hosts. I've been to some properties where if you walk into the kitchen, there's grease all over the cabinets. There's
Oh,
dirty baseboards, different things like that. I want to differentiate ourselves from the rest because you're not just committing to a weekend. When you stay with our properties, you're committing to, a month to maybe even 6 months.
I think that's
love that.
interesting because it's definitely Kelly and I have been talking a lot because my husband and I are currently furnishing our first midterm rental.
Yeah.
And it's you have to think about it a little bit differently. Like it's not a vacation rental, right? We don't need a stack of board games and
You don't need a pool
we don't
table.
need all of these kind of fancy things, but we do need really, really good staples.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time looking for a really good bed,
Yeah.
and blackout curtains and these things that are important when you are staying somewhere for a while. I also like how you talked about always having kind of, seeing into the future a little bit with what can happen with your listings, like with Airbnb and some other sites, like you don't have a lot of control and there can always be other things with different sites or, ways of business that come up, but it's nice that you've positioned yourself in a way where you have the leg up and you're kind of taking control back in that way. So I think that's really smart and it's going to make you stand out. And I think if and when any type of shift happens on Airbnb or with regulations or with anything like that, everyone's going to be scrambling and panicking and you're going to be like, yeah, I already figured it out.
Well,
So kudos to you because that's a big deal.
yeah, a lot of these Airbnbs that are listed on the website right now, 18,300, there aren't that many permits out there. So most of them are running illegally.
Right.
And, the scary part is if your neighbor complains or you get busted by the city, I've heard that the fine is as much as $1,000 per day.
Wow.
Per day. Wow.
Per day. And additionally, there's a potential you could have a lien put on your property by the city. For me, I don't need that kind of stress. I like to play by the rules and just
Right.
differentiate myself from the competition.
I think you're touching on a very important part of the business that I don't think we've actually gotten into on our podcast, which is keeping up with your local laws, keeping up with the news on what's going on in your areas of investment. So, do you have advice for those that are listening on where are you listening to, midterm rental and Airbnb short-term rental news on social media or uh, where are you finding your details from? Your
Well,
facts?
I will check to the city of Austin, of course, go direct to the source. But a lot of hearsay happens on Facebook groups. Recently a lady was shut down, even though she was permitted, but she was shut down by Airbnb. And then there are other properties, like my investor friend. She has a personal friend of hers that had 2 illegal listings, and one of them was reported. And she started. That's where I heard about the lien. So it's really being engaged in the social media space in this short-term rental market and being close to, people that are doing the same thing that you're doing.
Yeah, that's good advice.
This reminds me a lot of, I mean, obviously I have a marketing background. That's kind of what I live and breathe every day, but that goes in hand a lot with business development. And I've seen a lot of businesses through the year be completely reliant on Facebook or completely reliant on Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, then you don't actually own any of your audience, right? So if Facebook changes their rules or regulations, or if your page or group gets shut down, like you could turn on your computer or flip on your phone one day and like you're toast, right?
Yeah.
By going the direct booking route and using sites like Furnished Finder, where really it's a lead source, right?
Yeah.
We are connecting you with the leads and then you go do your thing. Like you are still the one that has the control and kind of, you get to do what you will and you're not necessarily playing by the rules of some big monstrous third party site. So kudos to you. Seriously, I know I said it already, but that's a big deal and it takes a lot of guts to kind of stand out from the crowd and say, okay, but let's do it a way that like we can actually control our own processes here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, still navigating a lot of things. We're still very new. My website just went live yesterday. I've had a landing page, but I think it's going to be a great opportunity for people to save some money by direct booking. Because right now Airbnb fees are so are so high right now, between 14 and 16% per booking. It almost makes it easier to just book a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to the part about staying up to date with what's going on in the Facebook forums. I think that's a great idea. And so I just want to make sure and add in there, I found great value from the Furnished Finder Facebook forum yesterday. It's travel nurse housing Furnished Finder if you want to join the group. But I had, after you hear about contracts getting canceled for nurses often,
Yeah.
but my husband and I, for the 2 years that we've been doing this, we hadn't had one yet until this week. We had our first one. I think there were a lot of cuts at one of the hospitals in Austin, and so I went straight to the forum, and there was plenty of conversations on. I just did a keyword search in the Furnished Finder Facebook group for canceled, and there were a lot of different conversations that had been started about the topic, and therefore, I felt confident of how we could move forward with being respectful and thoughtful to our traveling nurse, and still running a business in the process. So I think both parties were very happy with the outcome, and so we're currently, going to look at getting someone new into the home, and then we've chosen to, if we get someone in within the first month, to go ahead and prorate that amount that wasn't used with someone new moving in. So I think the Facebook groups are great for that. So thank you for sharing that, Vivian. Anything you want to add from this section before we move on to landlord logistics?
Yeah, you make a really good point there, Kelly, is that I was in touch with one of my previous travel nurses who stayed with me for 5 months, and she's a full-time travel nurse. She echoed the exact same thing this morning, that tons of contracts are getting canceled. And she's been traveling for 4 years or so, and she's actually going back to staff.
Okay.
And that's the first time in 2 years my studio is not being booked, which is kind of strange, you know? So, you know, having relying on nurses to book your place isn't always a good thing. It's just about expanding that horizon as well.
And I'm just going to jump in there and selfishly remind everyone that Furnished Finder did start as a platform for nurses primarily, and they're still our biggest audience. But like you said, Vivian, this market's like, it's becoming so popular. You've got people who are homeschooling who want to go see a new area for 6 months. You've got people who are relocating. You have people who maybe sold their house, got the equity, and now they don't want to buy anything again until the interest rates cool off. You have academics, you've got snowbirds, you've got digital nomads who just like travel nurses. Like, they don't necessarily have a place that they call a permanent home. So the users are expanding in a really great way, and don't ever feel, I don't want any landlord or property owners to ever feel like travel nurses are your only option, because like with anything, the demand for travel nurses is going to ebb and flow. Right. And I think there's a natural panic whenever it dips a little bit from property owners and landlords, but it's, you know, as with everything in our market and our economy, it's a cycle, it's a flow, and it's going to dip and it's going to rise. But there are a lot of other groups that you'll see come out from the woodwork that will appreciate furnished rentals.
Yeah, you make a really good point there, because, you know, I've had several groups come through my properties that are renovating their homes.
Yeah.
Right? You have people who have taken out a home equity line of credits, and they're, you know, renovating their dream home, and they don't want to stay in a hotel.
Well, they're getting creative right now, right? Because rather than take out a new mortgage for a 7% interest rate, they're going to use that equity, remodel, keep their interest rate.
Love the home they live in.
They don't want to live in dust for 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've actually been hosting several families that are doing that, which has been really great. I selfishly like it because, you know, a lot of the times these projects go over timeline.
Yep.
And they just need to extend. And then I've had several families come through who are building new homes out in, you know, either in Treviso or in Liberty Hill or whatnot. And again, selfishly, you know, I like those clients as well, because they're always extending.
So how do you navigate that? Because I've actually heard that that's one of the big feedbacks for Furnished Finder is a lot of landlords won't necessarily commit to something too far ahead of time because you don't know how long your guest might be in that property or if they want to renew. So I think you have a really good balance of that midterm and short-term model. So in that situation, having your properties also available for short-term, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you do not.
No, they're purely corporate.
Okay, so how do you navigate those requests coming in that are, you know, 6 months out or 3 months out? What do those conversations look like?
I let them know that I'm currently not booking at that time, because I try to keep my calendar filled. So I try to fill up the next vacancy first, as opposed to trying to fill something in the future. And if they're already in my property, I try to give them 3 weeks notice that, hey, I'm going to start marketing this property that you're staying in. So let me know if you need to extend, because, you know, now's the time to do it. Have those conversations with your remodeling company and book that conversation with your builder, so that you kind of know what's happening with your new home.
Very well said. Yeah. Katie, anything before we move on?
No, but I think you touched on a good note, because it's interesting in the midterm market. Like, no one really wants to have a booking come in for 6 months from now. Like, it's more of like, okay, let's keep the cadence at like a 3 to 4 month window, and then we're going to see how it goes, which is opposite of intuition for a lot, right?
Yeah. But that's not to say I don't respond to those requests. I see that as an opportunity to showcase my brand and say that when you are ready to book, maybe you'd like to look at my properties, and here are some of the features that we have, like ultra high speed internet, extremely comfortable beds, We have live plants in our spaces, fully stocked kitchens, things like that. It's just, I have their attention. So why not, leverage that?
Love it. Now, the live plants, okay, that one baffles me because I don't do it because I just feel like they're going to die in the process. So how do you make sure that the live plants are taken care of?
Well, when we have a guest move in, we try to do a house tour when they first show
Uh-huh.
up, and we
Uh-huh.
show them, the kitchen and the thermostat and all these things. And then I will point out the live plants, that this is what makes part of our properties beautiful. And if they can just water them once a week. So I get really low maintenance plants that work
Mm-hmm.
in dim light as well, and that could probably survive with a watering just once a week. And if they
Ooh,
die, then it's, $8 has gone missing.
yeah,
It's not a huge deal. It's just, but it is a feature. Some people love live plants like I do.
I love that. All right, so we are moving on to landlord logistics. And reminder, the focus of this episode is how to build a business and a brand with your furnished rentals. So we're going to jump into what Vivian and I have talked about are the steps to building your brand. So let's start off with Vivian, you wanted to discuss how to design your logo to fit your personality. So what would you like to add about that?
For some reason, the name HESTiA really drew me. If you're not familiar with Greek mythology, HESTiA is actually the Greek goddess of hospitality, hearth, and home. And, growing up, I loved, the goddesses, like Minerva and Aphrodite and all that stuff. So HESTiA really stood out to me, especially because I really do love hospitality. And then I started thinking about what that brand or what that looked like. And I started scrolling through what goddess pictures looks like. And I thought, I like the crown. The crown really kind of suits the feel of a goddess. But then, if you look at the picture behind me, that's sort of almost like a lotus blossom,
Mm-hmm.
which has a little bit of an Asian feel to it. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I like that combination as well. So it just kind of came together, and I wanted something modern, lighthearted, and minimalistic.
It's very beautiful. I think you made a great choice.
Thank you.
Second part, building a website that is search engine friendly. How did you go about that?
When I started thinking about my experience in website building and search engine optimization, which isn't a lot, but I know the basics. If you have the right keywords in your website name and in the landing page, it could capture a lot of traffic organically. So I started thinking, like, what could I do? I found corporaterentalsaustin.com was still not taken by anybody. So I just booked it. This is months ago. And I just booked it. Let's reserve it. What can $12 do? And eventually, as I started thinking about growing this, I thought, this could be a big deal. Let's pilot this here in Austin and see if I can make it into something big,
I
or
love
at
it.
least niche.
Yeah, that was actually a huge choice for Furnished Finder when it was started, was focusing on that SEO part. So
Correct.
if you just Google search furnished rentals or, furnished housing in your area, it's likely that Furnished Finder is one of the top three that you find, which has really been a focal point of helping us get to that 2 million monthly visits in the over 125,000 properties on the website. So yeah,
Yeah.
that SEO focus is super important for your website. Katie, do you want to jump in and
Yeah,
add
I
anything to
want to
these?
know a little bit more about your website, because building a website for many of our property owners is a little bit of a daunting task, and it can feel overwhelming very quickly. So I'd love to know kind of what your process was, what tools you used, and any tips you have for any other property owners who might want a website, because it's not mandatory. It's not, you don't have to have one. It just kind of gives you a little bit more space to expand on your property if you want.
So I have a property management system, and with a property management system, some of them actually have a button that you can just press and it becomes a gorgeous direct booking website. My problem with that is that if I decide that the property management system isn't able to grow with me, or I'm unhappy with it, then I lose my direct booking website.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to separate what my direct booking website is from my property management system. So I was able to hire the leading company right now, Boostly, to create my direct booking website. If you haven't read Boostly, or if you don't know about Boostly, they actually wrote the book Direct Playbook by Mark Simpson. And they are probably the industry leaders for WordPress websites that do direct bookings. And, knowing what I know over the last, 5 years as an entrepreneur is outsource what you're not good at. And I'm not good at building websites. I'm not good at making videos for our YouTube channel. I outsource those things because my time can be used for better things.
Okay, it looks like, I just looked it up. It looks like Boostly's part of HESTiA. Is that correct?
It's not. No, they just have
Okay.
they just have a sort of a relationship, but not a partnership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then last focus for, steps to building a brand is you really wanted to highlight why it's important to find your niche market. So you chose corporate housing. How did you go about making that decision, and what advice do you have for others finding their niche market?
I just found that I needed to start a new website that I can bring other people on board as well, so that they can get lead generation for a higher dollar value rental.
Nice.
Love it. Sorry, I have lost my place on our notes here.
It's your time to wing it. What you're best at.
I know. Vivian Kelly is so great because she always makes these thoughtful questions and lists out for us that we kind of follow along if you see our eyes wandering here and there.
Yes.
And I'm usually really good at following, and now I'm like, oh no, I got too into her answer. Where am I? Where are we?
I'm excited to see what question you come up with then.
Yeah, right. All right. So Vivian, I would love to hear how Furnished Finder has helped you, has been kind of a tool in your journey towards getting into midterm rentals, and what advice you would have for other users who are on the platform.
I've learned that Furnished Finders is a really great lead generation source because they've done the backbone and the work of having search engine friendly websites, and the work behind it, developing the key check program and tenant screenings and communications and whatnot. I've learned a lot about the operation side of how Furnished Finders works. And then it's, even though my property is a little bit more expensive than your typical travel nurse budget, I have had leads from Furnished Finder, and it's just really helped me, think more about what the midterm space looks like. Especially and I hate to say this, I'm a bit of a lazy landlord, right? I don't want to be spending all my time checking short-term rental messages that are coming through Airbnb. I'd rather, spend that time with my family and being in engaging conversations with friends without having to look at my phone all the time.
I don't think that's lazy. I think that's setting up a good efficient, setting up a good business model, because that's really what travelers want, right? Is to know exactly where everything is and not have to reach out to you for anything. And we've had a couple podcast guests, or at least one, that has said, if they are reaching out to you, then they take note of what that question is and build it into their process, so that question hopefully doesn't come up again, so that everything is available and ready and available for their travelers. So yeah, I think that's a great goal, is to be able to have that extra time to spend with your family and the things that you want to pursue by having a good structure in place, for sure.
And I think it's a different type of hospitality too, right? Like Airbnb, short-term rental hospitality is, you are every person, right?
Yeah.
You are marketing your reservations. You are, even if you have a team, right? Someone has to be managing it all, and it's very rapid all the time. With midterms, you get to provide all of that hospitality, but it's like you're just spreading it out. Right.
Yeah.
And you get to kind of let every little thing sink in a little bit more, and do things like, you can't have a live plant in a short-term rental. Like, unless you want dead plants all the time. Yeah. So it's just, for me, it's just like, you're taking it and you get to stretch it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think you could. You'd have to have your, that might actually be easier, because then your house cleaners, is part of their duty every 3 days. Check the plants.
Right.
Yeah, you could put that in your SOP for sure.
Yeah.
Kelly, you had a thought. What were you going to add?
Yeah, I only have one more question for Vivian today, and it's more, I want to give her a shout out. So I was super impressed by Vivian's just processes, which led to this episode of building a business and a brand. Because when I went and found, we met at the Bigger Pockets conference, and for whatever reason, the Hilton internet was not great. So it was actually challenging to get the information you needed every time you met someone. So I connected with Vivian. I found her on LinkedIn. And what was really cool is when I messaged Vivian on LinkedIn, it had an automate. She sent a personal response followed by an automated message of different options of, hey, we can connect on a 15-minute call as like a free, intro call to talk about real estate. If you would like a session to, strategize about your real estate, then I have a couple other options available. It was just a really well-designed process, and so I wanted to give her some time just to share about what it's like building processes, and that one was through Calendly is the form of communication that she was using, but you could tell it was her own touch going into the full process of finding that niche market and honing in and going after it with your processes. So highlight some of those processes for us, Vivian.
Well, first of all, I spent about 7 years at Apple. So when you work at a process-driven company like
Processes.
Apple,
Yeah.
it changes the way you operate. And I also have a master's degree in supply chain and operations. So,
Ah,
having things in a developed way or in a sequence that makes sense is really important in business. So, but I didn't invent the Calendly process. A friend of mine actually did that. I was like, wow, that's really great. I love how I can control my time and I can control my consulting time because I can block off different sections and whatnot. And then instead of just giving away my time for free, because I spent a ton of time developing what I've developed, it gives me an opportunity to charge for consulting as well.
Yeah.
awesome.
Processes and spreadsheets are the secret way to my heart.
Yes. Love
Like,
language.
some people's love language is gifts or words of affirmation. My love language is a good process, a
Oh,
good
yeah.
chart, or a good spreadsheet.
Yes.
So I think that's great. And I think, to our property owners out there, even if you just have one or two properties, don't be afraid to start implementing some small processes and routines. And even if they're small, you'll see the effect really does snowball with them. And the way that I like to tell people is, even if you only have one property, try to think of, okay, how would you do this if you had 100 properties, right? Because even if you have no goals in sight to grow a portfolio, because that's not every property owner's mission, right? But even if you only want to have one or two properties, if you're running it in a way that you could run 100 property portfolio, you're going to get a lot more time with your family. You're going to
Yes.
get a lot more weight off your shoulders, and it will take some time to set up at the beginning, but you'll get to ride the wave a lot easier and a lot more carefree than if you're not treating it like a business.
Yeah, I will tell you, implementing a property management system, I use OwnerRez. It's really changed how I live because now I'm not having to respond to every inquiry. I don't have to respond to every booking request. I don't have to send out check-in instructions with detailed digital manuals that I have. I can follow up with them automatically to post a review if they need to. Just different things. It's so robust, and it's really helped me take a step out of my business and staying out of my phone, staying out of my Airbnb account or even my direct booking account, and just focusing on the things that I need to do for growing my business.
Awesome.
That's awesome. I love it.
Any last questions, Katie?
No, I don't think so.
I think I just want to wrap it up by saying congratulations to Vivian for her new step in being the Austin co-leader for the national women's group called Invest Her. Vivian speaks nationwide on the power of real estate, and then has her local business as well. So, Vivian, we just want to say thank you for giving us time out of your day to spend sharing your story as a Furnished Finder host and a business owner with corporate rentals. If anyone wants to connect with you, please remind them the best way that they should do that.
They can reach out to me using the form on www.corporaterentalsaustin.com.
I love it. I look forward to staying in touch with you, Vivian, and thank you so much for being here. Reminder, everyone, if you loved this episode, hit like, subscribe, and if you want to comment, then go to YouTube. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.